They're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. Because Comey essentially he's worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope they're honest, because you can't let this happen to a country.
James Comey is now the first former FBI director to face a federal indictment. He was charged with giving false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding and could serve up to 5 years in prison if convicted. The case stems from his 2020 testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee on the FBI's failed Russian collusion probe into President Trump. Let's bring in Todd Blanche. He is the Deputy U.S. Attorney General. Todd, thanks so much for being with us. I want to take us back to September 30th, 2020. This exchange with Senator Ted Cruz with Comey when he was asked if he had authorized his deputy, Andrew McCabe, to leak information to the media. Listen here.
Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it.
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
In that May of 2017 testimony, he said that he did not authorize the leaks, which brings the question is, why did and I know that you weren't there, but why didn't the Department of Justice go after him then? Why wait until now?
Well, I can't. You're right. I wasn't there, and it's good to be here today. I can't explain and won't try to explain or justify what happened over the past 4 years under the last administration. But what I can say, and what I know that the American people know, is that President Trump has committed and remains committed to rooting out corruption and injustice. And here you had an investigation done by the FBI and by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia that led to the charges yesterday.
There are some immediate concerns that arise from some, including Kim Strassel and Andy McCarthy, on this Comey indictment. They have shared them. Let's listen and we'll get your response.
I think a lot of Americans would love to see some sort of accountability for James Comey for many, many reasons, for many, many sins. I'm not sure this particular charge is the way to go about it, in part because I'm not sure it's actually going to stick in the end.
The only way that you could convict Comey beyond a reasonable doubt is Comey would have to truly believe that he personally had authorized the leak. He would have to actually have authorized the leak, and then he would have had to know that he was lying when he denied it to the Senate. I don't think this case even gets to trial.
Todd, how do you address those concerns?
Look, I mean, a grand jury heard evidence over the results of an investigation that lasted a very long time, and the evidence that they considered resulted in an indictment. So while people can talk about what they view, what they think happened, what they think Mr. Comey knew or did, he stands accused. He was indicted by a grand jury, and I assure you that the FBI didn't just make up this charge, that there was a thorough investigation, and that the result of that investigation was the indictment that was handed down yesterday.
There was also, Todd, a lot of pressure coming from the president on this as well. This is what he wrote on Truth Social on the 20th of September. Pam, obviously he's talking to Pam Bondi here. I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all as guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Lindsay Halligan, she's the new U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, who was the one who impaneled the grand jury, is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice. They indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now, President Donald J. Trump. That appears to be a lot of pressure from the president to go after Comey, Letitia James, and Adam Schiff. What do you think of that?
I don't take that as pressure. I mean, I appreciate that truth came out last week. We are working all day, hard every day. The Attorney General and I, Director Patel, to do everything that this president ran on to keep America safe and to make America safer. And so when the president says that he's reading things or that he wants us to do investigations and he wants us to do our job, the Attorney General does not take that as pressure. I don't take that as pressure. I take that as a president who is working every day for the American people and every day to make sure that we're doing our jobs. And so I'm not going to speak for the Attorney General, but I know that I certainly didn't take that as pressure, and I highly doubt she did either.
Going back to Andy McCarthy's words there, I don't think this case even gets to trial. How confident are you that it will?
I don't know what Andy was referring to there and suggesting that the case is not going to get to trial. I can't speak for his thought process there. I can assure you that when a grand jury indicts in the Eastern District of Virginia, it's in Alexandria, that court will take it seriously and that he'll get his trial if he wants one. This was a case, again, this is not just pulled out of thin air. This case was investigated by the FBI. Mm-hmm. It was prosecuted by the Eastern District of U.S. Attorney's Office in Alexandria, Virginia. And folks may have their view from looking at the indictment and from knowing Mr. Comey, like a lot of these folks do, and might not be happy with this indictment. But as alleged, these are very serious crimes. This is very serious conduct, and that's why we investigated it, and that's why the grand jury returned an indictment.
So an indictment has been brought against James Comey, but then that also begs the question, what about Clapper and Brennan? Time would seem to be running out on them as well. Can we expect this investigation will broaden out beyond Comey?
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to talk about ongoing investigations to the extent that they exist or even confirm that they do exist. I can tell you that my job, Attorney General Bondi's job every day is to keep America safe. And part of that involves going after and investigating folks that have committed crimes or suspected of committed crimes over the past several years. But I'm not going to comment on any ongoing investigations except to say that we're working very hard for the American people every day.
I believe the president took a question on that earlier today as he was departing the White House, and he suggested there will be others. Todd, really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.